How much does it cost to rent a 3-bedroom apartment in Dubai? Well, that's what I'm going to cover off in this video because we've just gone through that process and I'm currently sat in that apartment and it's been one hell of a journey so far to get us here. I'm actually going to start a little bit before how much it cost to actually rent the 3-bed apartment in terms of the journey that we went on, because we did this whole thing remotely. So this is going to be a bit of a talking head video, but if you are sort of in the market to work out, is Dubai for you? What are the relocation costs? How do checks work? What's an Ajari? What's DWAR? I was probably exactly the same as you if you're just starting this journey out, which is I have no idea, but I'm interested in learning. I started that about 18 months ago. So I'm going to try and make this a short but comprehensive video of everything that you need to know about relocating to Dubai and all the costs associated to it, as far as I know of it right now, because we got our keys to this apartment about 4 days ago and we had 72 hours to fully furnish it. And that's going to be in a separate video in terms of the costs of actually furnishing a 3-bed apartment. We've got 2 young boys for context. They are, well, 7 and 10. He's going to be 8 by the time he gets out here in a few weeks' time. So let's get into the video. So let's kick off with probably the biggest cost that you're thinking about, which is how much is rent. So we decided to rent for a year. And I guess the reason for that is it's a big old move as a family. And I think of things as like 1- and 2-way doors, like completely selling up in the UK and relocating. My wife would be like, yeah, let's do it. Part of me feels like, I want to keep at least the door ajar in case it's not for us or in case some things come out the woodwork. But when Sarah watches this, she's going to be like, no, burn the bridges. We're going, we're not returning. But we decided to rent for a year. And then on the basis that we still have that Christmas Eve feeling and still want to stay here, we're going to then look to buy. So rental costs is what I'm going to cover in this video. Also, just quickly, you can see this rope moving. There were some floods here in Dubai recently, and there's a machine that's probably going to go up and down in this video, but I'm not going to start and stop it for that. They are just basically redoing all the sealant on the outside of the building. Anyway, back to it. So how much is the annual rent for this apartment, which is around 1,280 square foot? It's 165,000 AED. And what I'll do when I edit this video is I'll put that in both USD and GBP. So that's the annual rental cost for this property for a year. We use a service called Bayut, which is a property finder for both rental properties as well as if you're looking to buy. And on there, you'll see something called checks. So it might say 165,000 AED, 1 check, or 2 checks, or 4 checks. And what that means is you actually need a physical checkbook. And in terms of, if you are looking to rent out here, you do have to go and get your Emirates ID, get your checkbook sorted. I've done a full video of actually how to get your Emirates ID and the process that I went through to get that. But it's kind of a do not pass go, do not collect £200 here, which is get your Emirates ID, then get a bank, then get your physical checkbook. And I needed to be in the country to get my phone contract and my checkbook sorted. So I literally came out here for basically a phone contract and a checkbook. And that's what the checks are. So it's a physical check. And if it's 1 check, that means you're going to be asked to pay the total amount of rent for the year as 1 single payment up front. And you can imagine 165,000 AED, when we do the conversion rate, that's a pretty chunky bit of change to pay up front. So one of the questions that I keep getting in TikTok is there any flexibility when you're renting out here in terms of the number of checks? I would say everything is always up for negotiation. And if you find a great broker, they'll support you with that. What I did find during, I guess, the conversations that I had when trying to find an apartment is the price would often move depending on the number of checks that you're willing to write. So if you're willing to write 1 check, you could probably get a sharper price. If you're splitting that down to 2 checks, slightly worse price, and then 4 checks, and then very few from what I've seen do 12 checks, but it seems to be becoming more and more common. So depending on when you watch this video, you might see some apartments have flexible checks, sort of like 1 check or 12 checks. And obviously a 12 check is just a monthly payment. So then we're getting onto the other associated costs of just renting the apartment. And there's 2 fees to consider. One is a 5% security deposit. So if you take your annual rental amount and take 5% of that. So for us, that was 8,250 AED. That's a security deposit that's refundable. Same with, I guess, any rental property in the UK, which is where we're from or wherever you are from. I guess that's just, hey, making sure that when we decide to move out, is it in a reasonable order? Have we put holes in the walls and all that stuff to make sure that the landlord's covered? So you have to send that at this point in time as well. And then the second fee is 5% broker fee. So the broker is the person that's going to help you source the apartment, become the go-between between you and the landlord, help you get the contracts and get everything sorted to get the keys. And then there'll be your point of contact after that in case you have any challenges or concerns or questions. So there's kind of like an always on support there as well. So that is another 5%. So all in all, you've got the annual cost of the rent, you have a 5% security deposit. By the way, mine was 5%. I'm assuming that's standard. And I know that the broker's fee is a standard 5%. So the fully moved in cost for this apartment was 181,500 AED. And we've decided to go for quarterly checks. Interestingly, our landlord wasn't interested in whether it was like 1, 2 or 4 checks. They didn't want to go beyond 4, but this apartment was originally up for 175,000 AED and we did get the price down to 165. So then we're going into some of the setup and living costs. So firstly, you'll bump into something called an Ajari. So the Ajari, from my understanding, is a document that you need to then take to basically a government building, and it formalizes the contract between you and the landlord. It makes it a legally binding document that protects, I guess, both parties, the landlord and the tenant, within the local laws here. So that cost was 219 AED for the year. And I went to a place called Al Barsha Mall to get that done. And I think there's a number of locations to get it done. We went there, we got a ticket. When we went there, we had to make sure we took our title deed, the proof of ownership of the property. So as part of this process, we actually got sent the title deed from the broker, as well as a copy of the passport for the owner of this property to make sure those two things coupled together. So we knew and had peace of mind that we're sending this money across to someone who actually owns the property. And we ended up getting a ticket to this place, sitting down, and within about 15, 20 minutes, we got the Ajari sorted, which was that 219 AED cost. It's slightly higher for the first year, and then it's lower every year after that for renewal. Off the back of that, you end up getting a very formal document that confirms all the details, including your rent, the landlord's details, and it again formalizes the relationship there, and it forces the landlord to operate within the laws. So make sure that if you are renting, you do go and get that Ajari sorted. It's a must, and often many places, if you're looking to then go and get, like we've got the Do Internet connected here, they want to see copies of like the Ajari to actually activate certain home services. And then the second one is the DWAR, which is for your water and electricity. So that was a 2,130 AED deposit. 2,000 of that is kind of a security deposit, which is refundable. So if we decide to relocate back to the UK, we'll get that 2,000 AED back. If we decide to move to a different property, that is transferable to I guess our next unit as well. The 130 is a setup cost. And then in terms of the ongoing costs of the water and electricity and all that good stuff for this property, including the chiller, I don't have those numbers yet. And when I do, I'll put a video or an updated video in terms of like the actual monthly living costs of living in an apartment in Dubai. And just on that, the chiller here is, you can imagine we've got aircon on, and you're gonna have it on a fair bit in the property. When we were looking probably a year ago, a lot of the properties had something called chiller free. And what that meant was you could have the aircon on running in your property 24 hours a day, 365, because it was built into your rental cost. Very, very few properties have that now. It looks like the landlords are taking that out and making it chargeable to the tenant. I've had a quick look around, and it looks like for a 3-bed apartment for us, it's probably going to cost around 400 to 600 AED per month, depending on how much we abuse the aircon. And I guess coming into the summer, which we are now, we're probably going to be using it more than normal. When you do go and get your DWAR set up, you get a DWAR account, you'll get a username and password, you can log in, and you can actually see your usage, so you know exactly what you're spending. And lastly, just to cover off the Do Internet, we ended up, I guess one thing to mention is everywhere we went, where people said, hey, you're just moving in, they said, would you like internet installed? And we're like, yes. A number of people were saying, okay, what's your number? And then within, I don't know, 10 minutes, I was getting a WhatsApp message or a call, probably from a new person, a new contact every hour, trying to sell me either Do or Etisalat. So I completely understand it. People work off like commissions and they work really hard out here to sort of like sell you the services. But I would just be really mindful of like where you go and where you give your number out to, because right now it feels like everybody in Dubai has got my phone number because they're very aware, hey, it's a new family moving in, they're going to need some stuff, and as soon as that gets known, seems like everyone kind of like the bat signal goes up and then everyone has your number. What I ended up doing, and actually just as a quick note, is when I got the WhatsApp, the first time I got the WhatsApp, I actually thought it was Do that had messaged me, because the icon on WhatsApp was the Do logo. So I thought I was speaking to a Do customer service agent, because a lot of the work out here, and when you're dealing with companies, they do contact you via WhatsApp. It's really effective, really efficient. So I thought I was dealing with Do, and I wasn't. I was just dealing with a broker. So I actually just used the Do app, and I used Do anyway for my mobile phone contract. So it was dead easy. Went in there, looked at landlines. And from an internet perspective, Sarah went into a Facebook group called Real Brits of Dubai, or in Dubai or something like that, and just asked, because there's two options. There was a wireless option and there's a wired option. And my boy games a lot, me and Sarah on Zoom calls. So we wanted, I guess, the best internet package. I think one of those things that could be a real pain point is you cheap out on the internet situation and it becomes just an absolute nightmare ongoing. So we posted into the group and said, is wireless any good? Because a lot of the good deals are on wireless with like 5G routers. Everyone said categorically not, stay away, make sure you get a wired option. So we went into the app, typed in Waves Grande, which is the building that we're staying in. Fiber optic and wired was available. And I guess just to give you a sense of timings, we opened the app up, confirmed, and we ended up paying 549 AED per month. That's our contract, 24-month contract. And we got 35% off for the first 6 months. We signed up in the app, and within 4 hours had a phone call from the actual Do and said, we're coming to book in your install. The following day, we had someone at the property who had connected us all up, had the routers in, had 2 wireless routers as well, just to give better connectivity around the apartment. And we're getting about 1 gigabyte internet speeds. So plenty for Zoom calls, and the boy's got a router in his room for his gaming, which is fantastic. He'll be happy. So 549 AD per month, and it's a 24-month contract. Again, if you do decide to relocate, naturally you can take that contract with you, so it's not just for this property. And that's everything that at least I know right now. There's some other things that I guess are inbound in terms of how much is the chiller going to cost. We're getting gas connected with a company called Unigas, and once I've got all those numbers in, probably after about 3 months, I'll do a full report in terms of how much does it cost to not just rent, but to live in Dubai. For that, Sarah had a great idea earlier, which was also just going and doing the weekly shop, and just sharing like where we're shopping, and I guess some price comparisons of how much does it actually cost to live here with a family, in case it helps you too. Any questions at all, please let me know in the comments below, but let's leave it there. I'm gonna do another video straight after this actually, which is the process, like how quickly we went through the process of actually going from finding a property through to getting a contract signed, because it felt quite alien, but it all seems to have worked out okay. So I'll share that with you in the next video. Stay well, guys. Speak to you soon.